like it or not. We may despise it or be pleased with it. We may enjoy it or abhor it. We are living a life. We have this. One is here experiencing, living, acting, whether they have bad experiences, whether they have good experiences, whether they are at ease with themselves or whether they are at discomfort, they are insecure. We are alive, one is living. So, should we not look at how is one living? What are the things that he, she considers true, considers to be factual about themselves? What is it that their life is actually based on? Where is it they are finding comfort? Where is it that they think lies their security? What is it that makes them happy? Does it really make them happy or it is simply pleasurable? It is gratifying. Where my desire actually come from? Who I really am, besides all my outward identities of religion, of relationships, of culture, of a gender, who I am really besides my external identities. I feel pain, I feel suffer, I am anxious, I am sad. At times there is some kind of happiness, some joy, and so this is my life. Should I keep on continuing with this indifferent existence? Indifferent in the sense where I really don't have a precise, a clear idea of what life is. And even if I don't want to explore the larger, the so called larger, the bigger questions of life, should I not at least be sensitive towards my restlessness, towards my hurt, towards my sorrow, towards my suffering? Because exploration of life, finding who I am, pondering upon what is reality, these questions might seem alien, far fetched, even intellectual concepts, and divorced from reality, divorced from actuality. But to me, my hurt, my dissatisfaction, my discontent is substantial, is real. I feel it in the depth of my heart. I feel my anxiety, my restlessness, the misery, the innumerable fears that I have, the discomfort that I feel being by myself, the jealousy that I experience, the insecurity that is prevalent in my life, my worries, my thoughts, my own thinking, how it disturbs me. All of this is concrete. This is not a fancy. This is not something abstract. It is not a concept. It isn't a story that I am just sharing for the sake of it. It is the very reality. It is the very substance of my life. My life is made up with all of these things, with fears, with misery, with desires that I yearn to fulfill with my own discontentment. This is the complete content, the left, right, and center of my life. Should I not even pay attention to this? The bigger questions may seem unrealistic to me. The so called bigger questions may seem unrealistic to me. I may not be interested in them. As far as I am concerned, finding out the meaning of life is not my cup of tea, but the fear that I have in my life, that is real, right? That is a factual thing. That is what actually exists. My self-loathing, my tendency to escape whenever I feel not all right within myself, that is present in my life. That is not an abstraction. So, to learn about oneself, to know oneself is not a philosophical or an intellectual endeavor. Although it may seem like one, it may appear like one, but one shouldn't be undertaking this venture for those reasons. It isn't some stimulation of thought. It isn't a subject of an evening discussion or a morning meeting. It isn't the matter which is only restricted to books. We shouldn't be knowing ourselves for acquiring knowledge, for having some concepts ready at the tip of our fingers whenever we find ourselves in a discussion or amongst people who we think are intellectual, and so at least we would have something to share, and for that reason we want to learn about ourselves. All of this is very superficial, in fact very childish. We have to know ourselves because we are hurting, because we are inwardly disturbed, not all right. Because when we come close to ourselves, the reality of what we are frightens us. We are scared to look at ourselves. We continue to escape ourselves. And to see why we do that. What is it that makes us run away from ourselves? What is it that makes us fear being by ourselves? Where does my misery comes from? Why do I suffer? Why do I loathe myself? Why I am disgusted by the fact of who I am? Whether I will be lustful, whether I am selfish, self-centered, whether I am dishonest, whether I am immature, petty, insecure, fearful, I am that. And to deny that, to not come close to it, to discard it, to run away from it, to escape it, doesn't do anything. It rather strengthens, bolsters our tendency to escape, to run away. What we are is our fact, and running away from it isn't really helping us. It may feel alright to not face it, to not see the reality for what it is. The postponement of facing the fact of ourselves may, for a temporary moment, appear like something that is overwhelming, but eventually it is only going to haunt us back. And so, to completely come in contact directly with the fact of who we are is what is going to really relieve us from the ever present restlessness that we feel, from our sorrow, from our suffering. The life that we have isn't going to magically resolve itself. There is no clarity that someone else can give us. It is not written in some book. It is not a pill that we can swallow and feel light, feel happy. All of that is temporary, is superficial, is not real. To know oneself, to learn about who we are, is to give a chance to your suffering to reveal itself, to tell its story. Learning about our fears, our misery, our anxiety is how we really actually address them. And that is not an intellectual philosophical thing. It is as real and factual as our problems that we face. Exploration of the self, examination of who we are, questioning, doubting why we behave the way we behave, why are we insecure. This whole process alone, we will find how it blunts the sharpness of our sorrow. We begin to feel all right with ourselves. We finally get a hint of what it is to be at ease with oneself. To deal in concepts, to deal with one's life at a superficial level as an intellectual exercise only keeps us away from the fact of our life. We distance ourselves from what is really taking place and deal in concepts, in theories, in explanations, in descriptions. We are not looking at what is really going on. We are not actually paying attention to our hypocrisy, how we casually lie, how we are actually fearful of challenging our own beliefs, how we are fearful of living alone, how we are attached in our relationships, how we only look for pleasure. We are not finding the reality of all of these things. We are merely indulging ourselves in some sort of textual, verbal exercise. It is a fancy. Knowing oneself happens in present. We would know ourselves how we actually are, not through an idea, not through a text, not through a concept. When we are full of hate, full of antagonism towards the other, to see it right then and there is to learn about ourselves, is to learn about oneself, to see with what intention I look at the other, how I want to extract some benefit, some pleasure out of the other. To see this as a fact happening in that moment is to know oneself as what one is. We may not like it, but that is irrelevant. Our perception of who we are may not match with the reality of what is actually taking place, but then that perception alone was a fancy, was an idea that we were dealing in. That was a concept that we have built, that we had created about ourselves. There was no substance of reality to it. If we are lustful, if we are self-centered, if we are desirous, then so be it. Look, watch, be aware of your desire unfolding at the very moment it is born within yourself. We have to see how, whenever we are lustful, how we are dealing in pictures, how we are dealing in a series of images that is running in our mind, and how the thought is simply gratifying that exercise. We have to see that. We have to see our own hypocrisy. Carefully observe that what is it we are really trying to hide. What is it that we are trying to conceal? Can we bring it in open? We have to carefully observe our suffering, our sorrow. Who is it that is sorrowful? What is it that is hurt within us? What ideas do we carry? What is destroyed within us, because of which we are feeling the pain that we feel? Why do we identify with things around us? What is it that we are looking for when we identify with the people, our religion, our ideologies, our beliefs, our body? What is the agenda, the reason, the goal behind identification? Are we not looking for security? Are we not looking for comfort? Are we not hunting for something that would make us feel that we exist, that would assure us of our being, of our existence? Is not all identification born from that feeling to assure oneself of oneself, to feel validated by something that is outside of us? Is that not the case? Why is it that we seek validation, seek approval? Can we see how there is this feeling of insufficiency within ourselves, that what we are is not enough, that what we are is dirty, filthy, petty, small, narrow, not worth of any respect? Is it not that all our effort to achieve, to possess, to become something come from this exact very feeling of insufficiency, of feeling that we are nothing, feeling that what we are is not enough? Whenever we want to achieve something, to become something, to be known as someone, aren't we actively denying what we really are? Aren't we in a way escaping from our own reality, facing, knowing, realizing for ourselves that we are petty, that we are insufficient, that we are not enough? We run towards a fancy, we create a story which would provide us comfort, which will make us feel that we are somebody. This fancy, this concept in which we find security, isn't this concept the problem, the root of all our suffering, our problems? Because we are actively, willingly denying to look at ourselves as we are, and rather trying to establish an ideal, trying to measure ourselves on a benchmark which will prove us that we are successful, or we are someone, or we have achieved something. Aren't we always comparing ourselves against a benchmark, a standard, a scale? Isn't this scale, isn't the very existence of this scale tells us that we are simply unwilling to face the fact of ourselves, the fact of what we actually are? We will find how this effort, this struggle to become something, to be somebody, is at the root of all our suffering, of our anxiety. We are trying to move away from what we really are into a concept, into a fiction, into an ideal. And achieving that, we think that we will finally be all right, finally be something. The way we go about to assure ourselves of our existence, that very approach is flawed, because we are always trying to run away from the fact, from what actually exists, because we fear that we will always stay that we will succumb to our own insufficiency, pettiness, nothingness. Is that really the case? Isn't that again an assumption on our part, that being with our insufficiency, our mediocrity, our pettiness, we will succumb to them? Is that a fact? We will find that it is not. Have we ever observed ourselves as we are, not trying to move away from the fact, not trying to gratify or dwell in a concept, in a story, but to really hold, be with what actually exists? Our narrowness, our pettiness, our suffering, our fear, to really be with them, not trying to move away or struggling to escape, just be completely in the presence of the fact. And it is then we will see how the very fact turns, ceases to be, it dissolves. Our resistance, our tendency to escape, bolsters the fact. It keeps it as it is. Our pettiness, our narrowness, our fears, our anxieties, our suffering, they stay as they are, because we are perpetually trying to escape them, move away from them, dwelling in concepts, in ideas, trying to be ambitious, successful, only to deny and disprove what we really are. Our efforts in the opposite direction keeps the reality of ourselves intact. It doesn't change it. To know oneself is to directly see what we are, not create and project images out of what we have come across. To know oneself is to actually start living, to move with the vitality of life, to be one with it, and not enclose oneself into one's own self-centered activities. One learns about oneself when one is simple, when one does not play the game of language, where definitions, words, ideas don't hold any importance, but the perception of what is actually taking place is of paramount importance. We create an alternate reality of our life, which is artificial, which is a concept, which is a made up story, and we start living that. And we call that life. That is not life, it is a fiction that we have created. It is far away from life. It doesn't have even a particle, an iota of aliveness. Living begins when knowing takes place, and knowing is constant. It is not a book that is to be closed and kept away. It is not conclusions. It is not a theory, an explanation. Knowing is alive. It happens then and there. It is not, knowing is not looking at a concept, at a picture of what has happened or what will happen. Knowing is not speculation. Knowing is being with what is really taking place, with what is actually going on. With that comes the vitality of life. This knowing brings joy and happiness to life. All suffering happens in ignorance. We are hurt because we do not know. We are fearful because we are dwelling in concepts, in ideas. We have distanced ourselves from the fact. To be at a distance from reality is to be fearful. Restlessness is there when we have lost all touch with the present. Restlessness is an exercise, a product of keeping oneself in the past. To see oneself as what one is to stop, is to put an end to all effort and struggle that grips our life. And only then there is love. Love is not remembrance. It is not words. It is not of the past. It is complete attentiveness. It is the dance of reality that is going on for one to watch, to witness. Love and suffering don't go together. For our misery, anxiety, worries, restlessness to end, we have to learn moment by moment what is taking place, and this learning is love.